Hallo und willkommen zurück. Das ist die 8. Lektion von unserer Reise. Before we get started today, let's review the challenge that I gave you at the end of the last lesson. If you recall, I asked, wie sagt man diese Nummer auf Deutsch? And the answer is 999 Milliarden, 999 Millionen, 999.999. Sehr gut. Also dann, meine Damen und Herren, as the Germans say, springen wir gleich ins kalte Wasser. Let's jump right into some cold water, shall we? Today's lesson marks another milestone in our journey. For the first time, we're going to take on German's grammatical case system. In particular, we're going to learn how to use the nominative and accusative cases. We're going to see that German requires its speakers to distinguish between subjects and objects in a sentence, but not through word order, as in English. Instead, in German, it's the word's endings that tell us who or what is doing something to someone or something else. Let me show you what I mean. Check out this image. Das ist ein Haus. More specifically, das Einfamilienhaus. A single family house. And we can describe the basics of this Einfamilienhaus like this. Das Haus hat eine Garage, eine Küche, ein Wohnzimmer, ein Badezimmer, ein Schlafzimmer, einen Keller und einen Dachboden. Let's home in on two things here. First, there's the conjugated form of the verb haben, which means to have. Like the verb sein, haben is a high-frequency word and therefore very important. If sein is the king or queen of the language, you might say that haben is the hand of said king or queen. Alles klar? Anyway, haben has a slightly irregular conjugation. It goes, ich habe, du hast, sie haben, sie es hat, wir haben, ihr habt, sie haben, and sie haben. In our short description of the house, for example, we said, das Haus hat eine Garage, ein Wohnzimmer, einen Keller, and so on. Which brings us to our second important point. Notice that we now have 3 different indefinite articles. First, we have eine Garage, because Garage is a feminine noun. Next, we have ein Wohnzimmer, because Wohnzimmer is neuter. And then we have a new form, einen Keller. This indefinite article is einen because Keller is a masculine noun. But gender isn't the only reason that ein becomes einen. It also has to do with the grammatical relations between the nouns in the sentence. Take a look. In the sentence, mein Haus hat einen Keller, the house is the subject. It has something. In this case, it has a cellar. And so the cellar is the object. Now, compare that sentence with this one. Ein Keller ist praktisch. Now, the cellar is the subject of the sentence. It's being something. In this case, it's being practical, praktisch. The fancy grammatical name for the subject noun in a sentence like this is the nominative case. In fact, we've already seen the nominative case many times. I just didn't use the fancy term. And speaking of what we've already seen in our journey, allow me to jog your memory with this pair of lovely declension tables. Remember that all German nouns have an assigned grammatical gender, as expressed through the definite article, die, der, or das, or through an indefinite article, as either ein for masculine and neuter nouns, or eine for feminine nouns. And now I can tell you that what we actually learned are the grammatical inflections for only the nominative case. So then, let's update our lovely declension tables to look like this. Ach, sehr schön. Now we can keep in mind that der, die, das, ein, and eine only express nouns in the nominative case. That is, nouns that function as the subject in a sentence. Now, let's come back to das Einfamilienhaus. We've seen that the house, as the subject of the sentence, can have things. Eine Garage, ein Wohnzimmer, einen Keller. And these things that the house has are what we call direct objects. For instance, in the sentence, das Haus hat einen Dachboden. Here, the noun das Haus is the subject, and therefore it's in the nominative case. And as any good subject should, the house is doing something. More specifically, it's having something. In fact, it's having an attic. And in German, the word for attic is masculine, der Dachboden. The attic, then, is the direct object. And the fancy term we use for this grammatical state of being a subject's direct object is the accusative case. Also dann. Now, we can expand our lovely pair of declension tables to look like this. Notice in particular that for the nominative and accusative cases, the definite and indefinite articles are the same for feminine, neuter, and plural nouns. The only change here is for masculine nouns. Nominative der becomes den in the accusative, and nominative ein becomes einen. Now, I know that for some people, this whole nominative, accusative thing might seem confusing at first. So here's what we'll do. We are going to use a cute picture to help explain it. Ach, meine Damen und Herren, ist das nicht süß? And here's how we would describe it auf Deutsch. Die Katze liebt den Dackel. Now, first, we need to determine what the subject of this sentence is. And to do that, we ask, who or what is doing something? For this picture, it's clearly die Katze, and specifically, the cat is loving. Die Katze liebt. Next, we need to determine what the direct object of the sentence is. And to do that, we ask the following question. Who or what is receiving the action? As we can see in the cute picture, the dachshund is on the receiving end of the cat's loving. Therefore, the dachshund is what we call the accusative direct object of the subject nominative cat. And since the word for dachshund is masculine, der Dackel, the article changes to den. Die Katze, the nominative subject, liebt den Dackel, the accusative direct object. Alles klar? What if we were to describe our cute dog and cat picture like this? Der Dackel liebt die Katze. Now we've made the dachshund the subject and the cat the direct object. Grammatically speaking, this means that der Dackel is in the nominative case and die Katze is in the accusative case. And now, here comes the really cool part. Because German relies on grammatical endings and not just word order to express subjects and objects, we can take a sentence like der Dackel liebt die Katze, and we can change its meaning by changing just the definite articles. So here again is our sentence. Der Dackel liebt die Katze. We can flip the meaning of the whole sentence, but still keep the same word order if we say, den Dackel liebt die Katze. Do you get it? Our sentence now means the cat loves the dachshund. The new meaning comes from changing der to den, which makes the subject, der Dackel, into the direct object, den Dackel. Because the dog is now the noun receiving the love from die Katze, which is now our subject doing the loving. Also dann, meine Damen und Herren, enough with cats and dogs, even if they are cute. It's time for us to practice this new grammar. We're going to see a couple sentences in German, and our job will be to determine the subject and direct object in each. And remember, the subject is expressed with the nominative case, and the direct object is expressed with the accusative case. Also dann, here's our first sentence. Das Haus hat eine Küche. Das Haus is the subject. It's in the nominative case. Eine Küche is the object. It's in the accusative case. All right, here's our second sentence. Einen Hund haben die Kinder. Now, this one is a bit trickier. The subject here is actually die Kinder. It's a plural noun, and it's conjugated with the verb haben. And although it seems counterintuitive to speakers of English, the first noun in this sentence, einen Hund, is actually the direct object. It's what the children are having. Now, literally, the sentence einen Hund haben die Kinder translates to a dog have the children. But of course, in normal English, we would say the children have a dog. Alles klar? It's the endings that determine the meaning, not the word order. One last thing we need to keep in mind while we're on the topic of the nominative and accusative cases is this. Personal pronouns can also be subjects and direct objects. That is, they can occur in the nominative and accusative case as well. What this means then is that we now need to expand our lovely table of personal pronouns to include both the nominative and accusative forms. Starting with our singular pronouns, we see that ich becomes mich, du goes to dich, and second person formal sie remains sie in the accusative. Third person masculine er becomes ihn. And both the feminine and neuter pronouns, sie and es, stay sie und es in the accusative. Shifting to the plural pronouns, wir becomes uns. Ihr becomes euch. And both sie with a capital S and sie with a small s remain the same in the accusative. Sie and sie. Großartig. Now, let's practice these pronouns, shall we? And this is how we'll do it. Herr und Frau Gruber are going to perform a short dialogue for us. Only at some places in their dialogue, the accusative personal pronoun will be missing. Two choices will then appear. And our job will be to select the correct one. Alles klar? Übrigens, the topic of their dialogue is die Liebe. That's right, I said die Liebe. You didn't think that only the French could discuss die Liebe, did you? Natürlich nicht. Deutsch ist auch eine Sprache für die Liebe. Also dann, let's listen to Ralph and Mia talk about love, and let's fill in the missing accusative pronouns.
Ich liebe dich sehr.
Danke, Schatz.
Und liebst du mich auch?
Natürlich.
Und die Kinder?
Ja, ich liebe sie von ganzem Herzen.
Sie lieben uns auch.
Ich weiß, ich sage oft, Kinder, ich liebe euch so sehr.
Also dann, meine Damen und Herren, we can now officially consider ourselves initiated into the wonderful world of the German case system, in particular, the nominative and the accusative. Ich gratuliere! Gut, let's take a little break from grammar so we can continue building our active vocabulary. Remember that we still have an entire Einfamilienhaus to describe. Ja? Also dann, here again is das Einfamilienhaus. Wir beginnen im Keller. Das ist der Keller. Er ist groß. Er hat eine Treppe, eine Heizung, ein Licht, einen Trockner und eine Waschmaschine. Und hier ist die Garage. Sie ist ein bisschen klein, aber es gibt ein Auto, ein Wandregal und ein kleines Steckregal. Moment mal, did you catch that? We just heard a new and especially useful phrase. Here's that last bit again about die Garage. Das ist meine Garage. Sie ist ein bisschen klein, aber es gibt ein Auto, ein Wandregal und ein kleines Steckregal. The new phrase here is es gibt. Es gibt is a very useful phrase. It means there is or there are. Note that es gibt stays the same for both singular and plural nouns. Es gibt einen Hund. There is a dog. Es gibt viele Hunde. There are many dogs. But even more important, note that when a noun comes after es gibt, that noun is always an accusative direct object. Let's take a look at the house's Wohnzimmer. And this time, we're going to use es gibt to describe it. Hier ist das Wohnzimmer. Es gibt ein Fenster, ein Bild, einen Fernseher, eine Stehlampe, eine Couch und einen Couchtisch. Each of the nouns following es gibt are in the accusative, which is expressed by the ending on the noun's indefinite article. Also dann. Jetzt sind Sie dran. I want you to help me describe the remaining rooms in the Einfamilienhaus by filling in the appropriate indefinite article. Alles klar? Das ist die Küche. Now, how would we describe die Küche? Well, we would say, es gibt eine, ein or einen Zimmerpflanze in der Küche. The answer? Es gibt eine Zimmerpflanze in der Küche. The noun Zimmerpflanze is feminine. Okay, here's another sentence about the kitchen. Ein, eine or einen Kühlschrank steht an der Wand. The correct indefinite article here is ein. Ein Kühlschrank steht an der Wand. Our noun Kühlschrank, you see, is masculine. So if we said einen Kühlschrank, well, this would make the refrigerator the object, meaning that something or someone else is doing something to it. Remember, we can ask the question, who or what is doing something? And the answer here is the fridge. It's standing against the wall. In other words, the fridge is the subject and therefore it's in the nominative case. Ein Kühlschrank steht an der Wand. Let's do one more sentence about the kitchen. Would we say, die Küche hat ein, eine or einen Herd? The correct answer is, die Küche hat einen Herd. Our subject here is the kitchen, and the kitchen is having something. In other words, a direct object, which is the masculine noun der Herd, whose indefinite article expresses this grammatical relation through an accusative ending, einen. So then, meine Damen und Herren, in a nutshell, we would describe die Küche and its furnishings with the following sentence. Das ist die Küche. Sie hat eine Zimmerpflanze, einen Kühlschrank, einen Schrank und eine Mikrowelle. Es gibt auch eine Spüle, einen Herd und einen Ofen. Nun, there are just a few more rooms to cover in this Einfamilienhaus. We still have das Schlafzimmer, das Badezimmer and der Dachboden. Los geht's! Hier ist das Schlafzimmer. Es hat eine Wanduhr, eine Kommode und ein Bücherregal. Es gibt auch eine Hängeleuchte und ein Bett. By the way, since we're on the topic of things that are in our bedroom, I need to confess something. I once hung this poster on my bedroom wall. Das ist Justin Bieber. Singt gern und kommt aus Kanada. Now, while it's true that Herr Bieber is originally from Canada, someone in his family's past must have come from a German-speaking part of the world, because his last name is straight up German, der Bieber. Which, believe it or not, brings us to the last grammar point in today's lesson. And that is, how do we negate nouns using the word kein? Now, I know what you're thinking. How on earth could a Justin Bieber poster serve as a segue to German grammar? Well, consider this question. Meine Damen und Herren, ist das eine CD von Justin Bieber? Clearly, it's not a CD from Justin Bieber. It's a poster of him. But how would we then express this state of not being a Justin Bieber CD? Well, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, we should just use the nicht that we learned in an earlier lesson. Das ist nicht eine CD von Justin Bieber. Well, not exactly. You see, standard German doesn't work that way when you negate nouns. The negation word nicht works with verbs and adjectives, but nouns, they tend to follow a different rule. Suppose we were asked this question instead. Ist das Poster von Justin Bieber neu? Now, without batting an eye, we could answer, Nein, das Poster von Justin Bieber ist nicht neu. What we're negating here is the word neu, which is an adjective. To negate it, we just put a nicht before it. For instance, in response to the question, ist Professor Frem alt? We would of course say, Nein, ist nicht alt. But if we were asked this, ist Professor Frem Politiker? Here we wouldn't use nicht before the noun Politiker. Instead, we would negate the noun with the word kein. So we'd say, Nein, ist kein Politiker. Thank God. So, to come back to our Justin Bieber poster, recall that our original question was, Ist das eine CD von Justin Bieber? Clearly, it's not a CD, it's a poster. So to negate this information in our response, we would say, Nein, das ist keine CD von Justin Bieber. The negated noun here, die CD, is feminine. And the negating word kein works just like the indefinite article ein. It inflects to express a noun's gender. Here's a table that shows how kein is inflected in the nominative and accusative cases, for the masculine, feminine, and neuter genders, and for plural nouns. In the nominative case, it's kein for singular masculine and neuter nouns, and it's keine for feminine singular nouns and for plural nouns. In the accusative case, the only inflection that changes is for masculine singular nouns, keinen. The other forms of kein are the same, keine, kein, and keine. Also dann, to come back just one more time to our friend Herr Bieber, imagine that we wanted to claim this. We don't have any CDs from Herr Bieber. In German, this would be, wir haben keine CDs von Justin Bieber. Gut. Now that we've learned how to negate nouns with kein, keine, and keinen, let's return to our Einfamilienhaus one last time so we can apply this new grammar. Hier ist das Badezimmer. Now, what if I said this about das Badezimmer? Es hat einen Ofen. Now tell me, is this statement richtig oder falsch? Stimmt, das ist falsch. The bathroom doesn't have an oven. So, we would use the negating word kein and we would say, das Badezimmer hat keinen Ofen. Here's our next statement. Das Badezimmer hat eine Dusche. Is this richtig oder falsch? Jawohl, das ist richtig. Of course there's a shower in the bathroom. What about this statement? Es gibt eine Zimmerpflanze. What do we think? Do you see a plant? I don't. Nein, das ist falsch. Es gibt keine Zimmerpflanze. Okay, let's do two more. Es gibt ein Poster von Justin Bieber. Richtig oder falsch? Das ist falsch. Es gibt kein Poster von Justin Bieber. You see, I couldn't help myself. I just had to give Herr Bieber one last mention. Anyway, here's the last statement about das Badezimmer. Das Badezimmer hat einen Spiegel. Ist das richtig oder falsch? Genau, das ist richtig. Gut gemacht, meine Damen und Herren. And now that we're acquainted with das Badezimmer and the typical items in ein Badezimmer, let's complete our tour of the house by taking a peek in the attic. Das ist der Dachboden. So then, meine Damen und Herren, let's answer this question. Hat der Dachboden einen Spiegel? Nein, hat keinen Spiegel. Remember that the pronoun er refers to the attic, der Dachboden. It's a masculine noun, and in this sentence, it's functioning as the subject. It's the thing that is not having a mirror. Okay, here's another question for you about the attic. Gibt es Pappkartons? What do you think? Jawohl, es gibt Pappkartons. And now for our last attic-related question. Gibt es Hunde? Do you see any dogs? Gibt es Hunde? Nein, unfortunately, so our response would be, es gibt keine Hunde. Großartig. Also dann, meine Damen und Herren, that will have to do it for die 8. Lektion. But do me a favor and give yourself another Klaps auf die Schulter. Now, we can express and negate sentences with both subjects and objects in German. Ist das nicht toll? I'm telling you, we're making solid progress. Still, there's a lot that lies ahead. Zum Beispiel, how do we tell time in German? And how do we express that something is mine, yours, ours, his, hers, theirs, and so on? Well, in our next lesson, we shall indeed attend to these pressing matters. Auf Wiedersehen und bis gleich.